Don't say anything weird. Welcome.
I got to join this call that I'm on right now. Okay. Sorry. I'll talk to you in a minute. Okay.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm getting a couple things going, so bear with me. Hi, Adrian. Just getting our Facebook Live going. All right, we are live on Facebook. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are very happy to have the team from Next Stop Compton with us tonight. That includes Mr. Delgadillo, who works in planning, correct, with the city of Compton. They've all been working really hard on community engagement and just getting information out on this wonderful project. And so tonight we're going to learn a little bit more about what they've been doing and just what the future holds, and do a brief Q&A session with them following their presentation. So I'm Candace Leos. I'm the founder of Compton Advocates, and I wanted to just go over a couple of quick things before we get started with Next Stop Compton. As many of you know, really quickly, voting is coming up. We have Election Day on November 3rd. The date to register to vote was October 19th, so that's passed. So I'm hoping that everyone has registered, and if you have not voted, are getting ready to, do it soon. A lot of the polling places will start to open up on the 24th, which is this Saturday. So you can go to lavote.net to find information on the polling places near you. There are also 3 ballot box drop boxes in Compton. They are located at the Compton Library, Looters Park, and then there's one at the East Rancho Dominguez Library. Those are available 24 hours. They're safe. So if you need a place to drop off your ballot, those are the 3 places that you can go. They're all still listed on our Instagram, so if you need to reference back to anything, you can go there. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I know when I initially planned this, I didn't realize that there was going to be a debate tonight as well. So we're kind of competing with our presidential candidates. So I'm going to jump right into it. I will let the team from Next Stop Compton introduce themselves, and then we'll move right into the presentation.
Thank you, Candace. This is Robert Delgadillo. I am the senior planner for the city of Compton Community Development Department and the project manager for it. We started this project, I did, about 2 years ago with a grant from MTA, which is funding the development of a transit-oriented development specific plan around the Compton station. We are doing something similar that started even longer ago that is nearing completion for the Artesia station, but it is on hold presently. The Compton Station TOD specific plan covers an area of about 575 acres, has a population of about 12,242 within it, and is generally bounded by Peck or Mealy Street on the north, between Santa Fe Avenue on the east and Matheson Avenue, Matheson Avenue on the west. The southern boundary is a little stair-stepped, but the southernmost portion is Indigo Street, a block south of Myrrh. This plan is intended to create a more high density and intense development than is typically seen in Compton or most suburban communities. It is a TOD specific plan, which by definition means it's going to be more dense than typical suburban densities. Right now, our maximum density in Compton for regular housing is 29 per acre. For senior housing, 34 units per acre. We're going to go above that probably by double or triple in some respects in this TOD plan. This TOD plan will operate as a sort of combination zoning and general plan. It'll be a one-stop document where you just need this document to find out all the development standards and anything you need to do as a developer in order to build a project within the scope of the Compton TOD specific plan. We've been working on this for about a year. The consultant group working with the city is the Arroyo Group, which is headed by Bill Burns. Also working with him in close conjunction is Anton Anderson. Anton will be doing the presentation tonight, after which we will do some question and answer for the group. This will be a more high-level presentation since we don't know the level of expertise of the group or how familiar they are with the project. So we're going to assume you know nothing about this project and start from the very beginning. So with that, I will turn it over to Anton Anderson, who will run through a PowerPoint presentation to familiarize you with what is the Compton TOD specific plan. Anton?
Thank you, Robert. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what this is. This is, as Robert was saying, this is the Next Stop Compton specific plan, and I'm going to run you through very quickly through a broad overview of what this is and where we are and how we got here, and what the current status is, and so that way we can be ready for some questions. Let me get this underway. So as Robert mentioned, this whole specific plan is geared around the area right near the Compton station here, and Robert described what the borders of that are. So what is it that we're trying to do? We're trying to create a guide for long-range development. So this is something that is really a long-term vision. We're talking like 20 years out. And is led by community input. We've been getting input now, as Robert mentioned, for almost a year, over a year now. And what this results in is a change of zoning. So this is kind of how cities work. This isn't a matter of what the city's going to build per se, or sort of forcing anything, but really changes in zoning indicate what's allowed to happen and sort of guiding development and guiding growth, and recommends changes not only to that but also to public land, how streets will be managed. And one important thing to know about this is not something that's going to raise taxes. So this is talking about a guideline of how things can work, and we've been getting a lot of community input on it. So as you saw in the earlier slide, this is centered right there around the metro station. And the goal of this is to make downtown better and to build a better downtown, to make it a world-class destination that everyone who lives and works in Compton can enjoy. The idea is to strengthen local businesses, to increase, of course, as Robert mentioned, sponsored by a grant from Metro, so we want to increase ridership there on the light rail, but also to give this to make downtown a real destination where people can go and not have to go outside of the city to enjoy all kinds of amenities, and to give it a strong sense of place. And along the way, we'll create opportunities for residents to grow businesses, to create jobs that are local in the city, as well as to create a place that people can go and walk around and have it be a pedestrian-friendly environment. We started last fall. We've done. I'm not going to go through this too much, but we've done some outreach. We've evaluated the existing conditions there in the area, and this whole process is going to run through next fall. So we're sort of in the middle of it right now. Some of the outreach we did sort of pre-COVID is that we were at the open mic night getting input. We've been working with Youth Build. We've done a number of online surveys. We were at the Christmas parade. We have a stakeholders committee that we met with in person a few times. We've met with the Planning Commission, of course, as well as the City Council. So we've been trying to get a lot of input from as many people as possible, because this is a community-driven plan. So this plan reflects a couple of things. it reflects the values of Compton writ large, in terms of people being proud of being from Compton, being very much a family oriented, where people look out for each other. That Compton's the hub city, this hub of culture, as well as having this plan be one that builds for the future. In order, as we were designing this and coming up with the different alternatives, we've been focusing on making sure it's something that is secure and can a safe place to be and well maintained. We're looking out for housing, so there's affordable housing, making it so, as I mentioned earlier, so there's amenities and entertainment, so you don't have to go outside of Compton to go and have a good time and enjoy yourself. Creating some green space, some like community gardens, and an opportunity to enjoy the outdoors a little bit. Having it be pedestrian and bicycle friendly, so you don't have to always be stuck in your car. Compton contributes so much to arts and culture, and we want that reflected here in the city. And along the way, make sure that we're creating jobs for people who live in Compton. I'm not going to go over. We originally presented a while ago, and this was all on Instagram for those of you who are following us at Next Stop Compton on Instagram. We talked about some different alternatives in our virtual workshop that we had. A cultural alternative that was focused, really highlighting culture, a green alternative with lots of public open space, and then a commercial alternative, and you'll see that sort of here. We're taking a lot of sort of indoor plaza kind of ideas. If you've ever been to the Americana in Glendale, it's that you'll see we have these outdoor, but interior plazas that are just off the street. What we came up with is this alternative. It's a blend of all these things. I want to let Phil give some highlights, and then I'll pick it up a little bit.
Okay. Thanks, Anton. So all of these different alternatives that we looked at are kind of within the parameters that Robert mentioned earlier, right? They're all going to create a type of environment that is like a downtown environment, and that is higher intensity, right? Where there will be more people there, and that is the kind of environment that allows you to be able to walk to places because there's enough people to sustain the things close by, and that also encourages people to use public transit. So all of those alternatives kind of did those things. But what we really heard from people was kind of a strong desire for, as you see here in the commercial core, for an area that would be kind of like an outdoor mall, like Anton was saying, where there's a place to hang out, to go to restaurants, shops, and maybe entertainment as well. And so we place that kind of in the center of the in the center of the area on what today is the Renaissance Plaza, where Superior Market is, and then to the south here where Smart and Final Extra is. So again, these are long-term visions. There's no plan to of these property owners to do that right away, but over the long term, that's what we'd like to see this area transition into, and that's what the City of Compton would allow in terms of zoning to be built there. The Civic Center area is envisioned to kind of retain, of course, the key historic features, starting with the MLK Monument, the courthouse, the City Hall, all of that. But really, a lot of that space is very desolate. There's not a lot of people that use it on a day-to-day basis, and so we would add more uses into that, both open space that's accessible to the residents and maybe more oriented towards the residents, maybe some areas for athletics or playgrounds or things that are more neighborhood oriented, and then also new development, which could take the form of affordable housing, as well as maybe hotels or other uses that in the future, where you're attracting people that are interested in the history and the future of Compton, and therefore can contribute to raising up the local, businesses in the area. And then over here on the eastern side have what we're tentatively calling here the historic core between Alameda and Santa Fe. That's where you've got the most kind of older, mostly 1- and 2-story commercial buildings, and that could be a more locally focused area, but again, also an area for shops, for restaurants, maybe things like that. All of these districts, these 3 major districts here, would form together, kind of form the downtown. And as you saw in the earlier picture, that the entire specific plan area is actually larger than the downtown, but this is the focus of it. And these three districts would be linked by what today we're calling the Compton Walk. I don't know, maybe we'll have a better, maybe one of you guys will have a much better name than that, that we can put to this. But basically the idea is to have a very pedestrian friendly environment along Compton Boulevard, a special experience that, people from around the city come in and they are able to enjoy it. And it speaks to the culture of Compton. People, when they're there, they know I'm in Compton and I'm proud of the place that I'm in. We think that this kind of connection, which you see all on this black line here, would be kind of punctuated with what we call major places, which would be kind of plazas and open spaces for the community, for gatherings, for public art, for different things, concerts maybe, and then minor places, which are little elements along the streetscape, like again, public art, maybe historic elements, recalling the history of the city, and things like that can be customized and created by the residents themselves, by groups, by local businesses, etc., and create a kind of dynamic environment that altogether is a journey. We'll call it a journey through cultural Compton. So that's kind of the vision at this point after the outreach that we've gone through to date, culminating with our city council meeting just last week.
And I have to say that we're really excited about the Compton Walk. I mean, as a concept. I mean, essentially, if you want to think about something else, other places in LA that are similar to this, think of this as Compton's answer to the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I mean, it's one of those things that I think can really, allow Compton to show off what an amazing contribution Compton has made to the world, to really show off the pride that everyone has of Compton, and to not only do that, but also one of the things that Phil mentioned, having it being pedestrian friendly. One thing about being pedestrian friendly is that foot traffic means business. And so that way, if you start a business, a small business that's there along Compton Boulevard or in these areas, you're going to have people walking by because they're going to come through and they're going to either see some public art. I mean, the Hollywood Walk of Fame is a great destination, but it's a little uniform, if you will. And I think one of the nice things about this idea is that it allows Compton to not only have its own twist on it, but also each one of these spots will have a little more flavor to it. Let me just put it that way. A little bit of a twist, because each spot would be customized depending on what's being showcased. And so, as Phil mentioned, it consists of this journey from not only from the station, but also from the Civic Center over through the historic core. And major places is like, the MLK Monument. Other major places would be, having like some sort of a sculpture or some sort of a thing, a plaza right there near the station. Something further east in the historic core. All these opportunities for people who are visiting to have kind of like their selfie moment, but also just an opportunity to show off, all the contributions that Compton has made, and to be a real point of pride for everyone who lives there. One of the things that is a key element of this is a reimagining of Compton Boulevard. So we're talking about widening the sidewalks, creating a protected bike lane, and the design theme because of Compton's musical contributions is kind of like this blank sheet. And so we've got these long lines running down the sidewalk, kind of like a music score almost. That can then be, when we talk about the minor places, would be like the notes on the music score, punctuating the scene as you walk around. And once again, it'll drive foot traffic, as you see here in this rendering. Because we're outdoor dining, courtesy of COVID, is going to likely be here to stay. You'd have spaces where you could be outside, where you could interact, and once again, driving foot traffic. Let me show you another view of what that might look like. And it'll be just, I get excited about every time we talk about it. I think it's going to be amazing. It's the kind of thing to where, the pride that people have when they, when you say, hey, where are you from? I'm from Compton. And then when people come and they say, well, I'm going to come visit you. Yeah, come visit me. Come meet me here. Meet me at my favorite little spot. And it's going to be right there. It's going to be a nice place, and it's going to be run by local people. And, and along the way, we've created some new jobs. To me, it's such an exciting idea. Phil kicks me under the table whenever we're in a meeting because I get really fired up and I spend too much time on the presentation on it, because I think this is what really pulls it together and pulls downtown together. And it's the kind of thing to where you would, you'd, rather than just simply just driving through downtown Compton, you would come in and you would stop, you'd park, you'd go, you'd see a movie, you'd go to have a nice restaurant, you'd do some shopping, you do one of those things, and then you walk around. Maybe you have dinner at place X, and then maybe you walk down the street for dessert or coffee or something like that. It's the kind of thing to where you would really just intermingle and move around in that space. And for people who are visiting, rather than clogging up the roads, maybe they take the train, and then they get off at the station, and it's a nice destination to come to. And by having it be that friendly and having it be, having so much foot traffic, those dollars are not only coming into the city, which generates tax revenue, which does good things to pay for programs, and does all kinds of great things for the city, but also that means that for the residents, for people who live there, your dollars are being recycled. They're staying in the city. Okay? And I get real excited about that. I think it's an amazing idea. And part of this is this whole idea of restoration. Whenever you have consultants come in and they say, hey, we're going to do some new zoning and we're going to revamp the whole thing, everyone's all like, you're going to gentrify. And people get flipped out. And then when you think about gentrification is one of these things where it's like, okay, well, we're going to make some amenity changes, and then that leads to, well, what could happen, and you come up with a plan, and then people begin to speculate, and then suddenly, people, outsiders start doing these different things, and then you have things becoming unaffordable, and people get displaced, and it just has this sort of this big spiral of bad, right? The flip side is you do nothing. So you have no foot traffic, so you have more vacancies for businesses, which means the property values go down, which then means it becomes a little more desolate and a little less safe, and there's less tax revenue to do the nice things, and it all kind of becomes this cycle of disrepair, and it kind of falls apart. And so what we're trying to do is kind of go the middle path to where, we make some zoning changes. We change the way what's available to be done on a piece of property, create some financial incentives, saying, hey, if you want to build and Phil kicked me under the table, or Robert, but if you want to build your fancy apartment building, well, in order to make it, X stories high, you got to do these incentives and have a certain amount of it, has to be affordable housing. You can, zoning means, for those of you who aren't familiar with how this works, means you get to make the rules of how a property can be used. And so you can make sure those rules embody the community values. You can make sure the rules embody the community values, so that way, when you're putting up a new building or a new shopping center, that a certain amount of it has to be affordable housing, a certain amount of it has to be set aside for small businesses. You can have those rules to where it's like, well, if you want to do something that's a little bit of an exception, well, you got to give a little bit here, put some public art out, make sure you have some things that are more amenities that the community wants, and then you can also bake into that a thing that drives entrepreneurship. Local businesses, locally owned. You can have things like tenant protections for people who live there. You can do things that then give you kind of the best of both worlds, to where not only do you have the improvement of the amenities, but community guided and restores the community to what everyone collectively says they want it to be. And so that's what we're driving at. We're driving at something that really will revitalize downtown Compton and be a place that, that just makes everyone proud, that makes it one that everyone wants to come and participate in. I'm going to be quiet because I get too fired up about this sort of thing. I think this is such an exciting project for me, and I get so into it, and Phil always says, gotta keep moving on. So I'm going to hand it back to him because he's going to talk about some of the potentials that can be done with publicly owned land. As we said at the outset, this zoning, changes in zoning, you can't force a private landowner saying you have to do this or you need to break ground and do this project right now. That's not how it works. But with publicly owned land, things owned by the city, there's some possibilities there. I'm going to let Phil talk about that.
Yeah, exactly, Anton. So yeah, we see the publicly owned land is really critical to really do that kind of public interest development that really advances the the goals and the things that Anton has just talked about in restoring the community. So there's quite a bit of publicly owned land around what we call the downtown area. And I'll just highlight a couple of things here. I think, as I mentioned before, in the lower left is the Civic Center. The back of that Civic Center presents some opportunities for affordable housing. Publicly owned land is really the best place to do affordable housing because when the city decides to make available some land, or the county in this case, actually the county that owns the Civic Center, but when they decide to make available some land for affordable housing, then they can go and they can get big time dollars from the federal government or actually from the state, but through federal tax credits that will then pay for new affordable housing. And that'll help stabilize the community, help people obviously who are paying too much in rent today, who are low income, who need help. And then if things do start to change, there are more amenities nearby, and therefore it's a desirable place for people to come. But those people are then in affordable housing. They are protected long term from any changes in the community. So definitely the back of the Civic Center is a great opportunity for that. On the city yard, we've thought about some different places. That's over here on Murr and Alameda East. Thought about some different things to do there. One of the interesting options might be to have a kind of food incubator, a community garden, kind of an urban farm there where, there's so many people in Compton that are, baking cookies, right? And they're coming up to events and they're selling them at the events, but can we help them take the next step, right? And become an actual business? And this might be a place where they could do that and have access to, very local produce that they could use for that. And then finally, over here on the east side, just the very edge of the screen, 501-601 East Compton Boulevard. It's also a city-owned, city and successor agency-owned piece of land there that gives kind of opportunity for both things, both housing, affordable and market rate, and then also an innovation hub, which would again be kind of a place for people who are maybe in the creative industries, which we know there's so many content, it's like unparalleled talent, obviously, but helping those people, take the next step, take their business to the next step. And again, keep that cash that's in the creative industries that today is circulating so much in Hollywood and the West Side. And let's have some of it recirculate here in Compton and enrich the people here. So those are some of our thoughts about publicly owned land. And I think that's where we're going to cut off the presentation for today. And we're so excited to hear your questions, dialogue further.
So can we go back to the schedule slide? Someone was asking to see that. And then if anyone has any questions, can you please type them in the box, in the chat box, and then we'll go through them that way, unless you guys want to do live questions. It's up to you.
I think in the chat it would be great.
Okay, so if you have any questions, please type them into the chat box and we'll pull them from there. And then I'll take a look and see if there's anything online. We're streaming live on Facebook as well.
Yeah, let me just briefly present the schedule. I know Anton, introduced it before, but you know, this kind of shows like 5 different stages in the 5 different columns, 5 stages of the process. So we're through 3 at this point, so we're still kind of in the middle. First, we did an existing conditions report, and we did a lot of the outreach events that Anton talked about, just talking to people and coming up with that list of values and priorities that we presented before. Then we came up with the different alternatives. We had a virtual workshop. Some of you might have seen that, participated in that, a survey in which we got feedback on the 3 different alternatives, the cultural alternative, the commercial alternative, and the greening alternative. Kind of took all the feedback we got from that, created, and we kind of created this hybrid alternative that's got the best of all 3. I'd say it has a lot of the commercial. There was a lot of interest in general from the public about the commercial alternative. So there's a lot of commercial in it.
Bill, so would you say that we're probably in the first pink box?
Yeah, we're in the right. We're in the 4th right here. We're in plan content implementation. We're done with everything that's in blue, and we're moving on to what's in pink. Thanks.
As soon as we get a fully drafted specific plan, that's when we'll have another stakeholders meeting presented on the web page, both the city and the project web page for the community to respond to while we're still crafting it. But at that point, the specific plan would probably be about 90% done. So we would provide that early opportunity for the community to provide comment before it's formally released for review. And I see questions.
So if everything goes according, yeah, we can go through those. I want to just quickly ask, so if everything goes according to schedule, when would we see this possibly breaking ground?
That could be years, or it could be early 2021 or 22. We have one project by a developer, KBK, that's on the northwest corner of Santa Fe and Compton that's currently under review. It's on the very perimeter of the specific plan, but still within it. Their goal is to get an entitlement approval February of next year. We're working closely with them to ensure that that project will be compatible with the specific plan. But the specific plan, as the schedule says, shouldn't be complete or in the public hearing process to maybe September of next year. After that, it's really up to the development community. We could get a lot of response, especially since KBK starts breaking ground, or it could be a couple of years before we get the next project in. It's really hard to tell at this point.
Okay, thank you. So,
and one thing I'd like to add to that, if I can, one thing I'd like to add to that is that, part of the reason why we're doing a specific plan is so that, even though we can't force a property owner or anyone to do, hey, you have to break ground tomorrow or give them that kind of a timeline. The idea is that there's a comprehensive plan, so that way it's all unified. So it isn't like this disjointed, sort of thing. So that way there's a larger, grander vision that is then implemented over time. That's the point of this.
okay, got it. So first question, when talking about affordable housing, what are you guys thinking? I know we built some live spaces that did not do well.
Well, we're still thinking about that. The Artesia specific plan has a 5% affordable requirement for low income. We've talked about that for the Compton plan. That could be viewed by some developers as a constraint, and they may shy away from that. So we're also alternatively looking at another way to encourage them to include the various low income categories: extremely low, low, very low, moderate, above moderate. But the way Phil and I are thinking of approaching it is, instead of mandating an absolute percentage minimum or some other hard and fast rule, is sort of incentivize the inclusion of affordable housing by giving concessions similar to density bonus law. We were thinking of, and we're working out the percentages, but based on a certain percentage of a certain category, they may get, excuse me, a concession, which basically means the ability to vary a standard that they may not be able to comply with, sort of like a variance. If they were required to provide 200 parking spaces, for example, but they can only fit on, or maybe through a parking study, they determine that only 150 is adequate, they can use a concession to drop down from 200 to 150. So we're thinking of approaching affordable housing that way through incentivization. But right now that's sort of still up in the air. But we're looking for low income, which is 80% of countywide AMI or average median income, possibly down to very low as well, which I think is down in the 50% range.
Yeah, we've even put some thought about extremely low as well, which is 30% of median income or lower. So those things are kind of, we're still working that out. Also for the, what we've shown here is proposals for public land, affordable housing development. It's more likely to be, just housing. I don't think that live work is really the goal there.
No,
Income level is not.
and we're providing a variety of housing types. Our goal is to allow everything from an SRO, which kind of think of a hotel room for people, all the way up to traditional condominiums, apartments, and everything in between. But basically, we're excluding single-family detached housing. This is going to be more multifamily because we need to get the densities, but we want to provide a variety of unit types and sizes. So we're looking at lowering our existing code minimums for apartments, for example, studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, dropping them by about 200 to 100 square feet lower to make the units smaller and therefore more affordable generally, even though it may not be an affordable unit. We're hoping that by reduction of standards that the rent for them will nevertheless be lower than what you might see for a larger unit. Any other questions?
Thank you. Okay, next we have a couple. So next one, what business guidelines and protections can we expect to see that will support the repeated statement that this new zone in downtown Compton will be ran by local people?
Well, the specific plan is the city's specific plan. So that means the city runs it, implements it. Nothing happens out there without the city's approval, without the community development department's review and approval. No one can suddenly just start building stuff unless we okay it. And what we do is implement the specific plan. Any development project proposal will be reviewed through the specific plan. So if it doesn't comply with the guidelines, design guidelines, zoning, development standards, goals and objectives of the specific plan, and the general plan for that matter, we wouldn't approve it. So that's the guarantee right there. This isn't private sector controlled or implemented. This is entirely 100% city controlled.
Thank you. Okay. We have someone who wants to know, how did the Arroyo Group get involved with the Metro to work on this project? This particular individual takes issue with it being called community guided when city development must come from and be led by people in Compton, not an outside urban planning firm. They're also interested to hear what everyone's individual investment working on this project. And I just, before I let you answer, I will state that the Arroyo Group did come in. They have been getting community feedback. I'm one of the stakeholders that have been in their meetings repeatedly. So they definitely have been getting input from community members. So I will let you guys answer that question.
Well, if I missed something, please jump in, Phil or Anton, but that's a long question with multiple parts. But basically, Arroyo was brought in because they were selected by the city to be the planning firm consultant to prepare the specific plan, which is required actually by MTA. As part of the grant, we released an RFP basically nationwide It was put on the city's webpage. It was posted and published. It was put on the APA, which is the American Planning Association webpage for RFPs, which goes national. We had several submittals. We interviewed various firms, and the city, which is the city manager, the planning director at that time, myself, and I believe 2 other individuals interviewed the firm and selected the Arroyo Group. We felt that they were the most responsive, given their experience in the area. They had just previously done a similar specific plan around the Rosa Park or Willowbrook Community Station. So we felt that gave them some feeling for the area, in addition to their technical expertise. So they were selected. The community has had various opportunities and still does to provide community input. We have a community page, a project web page where they can go on and get information as well as leave comments for the specific plan. We have an Instagram account. There's information on a city web page as well. We've had 2 stakeholder committee meetings already. We've had a general workshop to the public way back, I believe, probably a year ago about now. We've had several other community meetings. We had a community event at the Compton Christmas Parade last December. We also went to an open mic night, I believe, last November. So we've given the community various opportunities, and they will still have opportunities in the future to comment on this specific plan. The Arroyo Group is the technical expert. They're here to prepare the technical aspects of the specific plan, the structure, but the community provides comment and input on what flavor and what policy direction the specific plan takes. And throughout all the community events, we've pretty much heard a consistent input from the community, that being more local jobs, more entertainment and sit-down restaurant land uses, more grocery stores, safer areas, areas where Compton can participate locally in terms of entertainment and activity areas, so we can reduce the retail leakage of Compton, so that the money that Compton spends on entertainment, food, so forth, is spent inside instead of adjacent cities. So we've taken a lot of those concerns from the residents and the various community meetings we've had and factored them into the plan. So we are very responsive and very interested in what the community has to say. And as another example, that is why we are here now. Again, to get community input, to present them the project and hear what they have to say. Anything, did you want to add anything, Phil?
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you, Robert. Just to say that, our only interest in this is to do a good plan for the city of Compton. We are being paid for the work that we do, but we're not property owners in Compton. We have no other kind of financial or other stake in the city.
Yes, nobody has any stake in this project other than to produce a good plan.
Thank you, gentlemen. There is a statement on here that's really long. I'm going to try to sum this up, and I don't know if you gentlemen can read it. It's from Vivi. And there's concern about gentrification, and my concern is that these new business opportunities will be more accessible to other businesses because of monetary or citizenship requirements, and in the not so long run completely affect true Compton local business owners. I love the plan, but I'd love it even more if our residents' demographics were promised to be taken into account.
Okay, well, we are taking them into account, and gentrification has come up in other past community events, and we're very aware of that. We're putting in a provision. In fact, I spoke of concessions for low-income housing before. Right now, there's also a concession for retention of Compton businesses at a lower than market rate lease space or lease cost. So, and that's an attempt to keep any existing Compton business in any area potentially that could be affected by the TOD to stay in place and not just disappear. We want, and we've heard this comment before, that the residential units that are being proposed should be occupied by Compton residents, and that is our goal as well. So we're very mindful of that. Short of writing prohibitive regulations, we're trying to make it as Compton friendly as possible, and hopefully the Compton residents will respond and move into this project or view this project as an opportunity for move-up housing or for empty nesters to move into smaller, less maintenance-heavy properties.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I want to thank you, Vivi, for this comment. And this is something that we've been thinking about so much, you know, both on the commercial side and on the residential side. And, you know, we're taking it really, really seriously. And, you know, Anton, maybe you have more to say about this, but I think one of the constraints that we're operating under is fair housing law. Fair housing law is a great thing, of course, but fair housing law also tells us that, you know, we can't restrict housing, and similarly, we couldn't restrict, you know, commercial spaces to a certain ethnicity, for example. But in the way that we kind of conceive of downtown Compton and what the community and the city chooses to highlight, and the ways that we like allow and create a place where Compton's culture can be expressed in the physical space, that's going to be naturally attractive to people from Compton, you know? And so what we don't want this to be is to be like, you know, any place USA, right? We want it to be really clearly Compton, and we think that that will make it a place that's attractive to, first, the people from Compton, and, you know, people who share you know, similar ethnic and cultural and other backgrounds.
You know, one thing I want to say about that is about, you know, the whole gentrification thing is that, you know, one of the reasons why we are focusing on this being a very specific plan, we're looking at long term. You know, a lot of and gentrification is a loaded word, and gentrification has become sort of a euphemism for lots of other terms. And so I'm sort of using sort of the pop culture definition of it. I mean, improving something, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, but in terms of, you know, when I brought up the slide, when people sort of in pop culture sort of think of gentrification, it's when there isn't a plan, where suddenly, you know, someone, you know, has done some sort of a survey somewhere, and they say, oh, this is the next hot spot, and so then people start buying up the land, start doing these things, and there's no zoning overlay. The city is kind of like, you know, caught unaware, and then that's when things sort of get out of control. And things aren't being, you know, and the whole idea of having, you know, a specific plan is to have a specific plan, to have a plan for how development can roll out. So that way the values of the community, set by you, set by everyone who lives there right now, can be sort of baked into how things are done. And as Robert mentioned earlier, you know, any projects, any development has to be approved by the city. And so now that once there's a plan in place, we can make sure that everything in terms of requirements and and any sort of you know, affordable housing requirements and requirements for, you know, what size businesses can come in, all those things can be baked into the plan. So that way, if it doesn't adhere to the plan, then it won't get necessarily approved by the city. Or if they want like an exception to certain parts of that plan, then they have to make certain concessions, as Robert was mentioning.
Awesome. Thank you.
Let's see, we have another question.
Let's see. We had one more. Let's see. Oh, we have a couple comments. Hi, great project. I'm curious to know if there will be a possibility for low barrier for
Yes.
local street vendor permits that can allow locals to sell their goods.
Well, we to be honest, we haven't really given that much thought. No one's brought that comment up before. But there's probably a very good possibility for it. Our TOD is requiring the plazas, some open courtyard areas with various designs. So there's going to be some opportunity. But I've already written that down as something to explore. In other cities, I've written ordinances for local carts that you typically see in malls, the little 6-foot by 10-foot carts that sell phones and phone covers and stuff all over. So maybe there's something we can do that we can designate certain areas in the open space plazas that will allow vendors to come in with the approval of the landlord and sell food items or homemade cottage food products or whatever. But that's a very good question. No one's ever brought that up before.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you for that. I had someone, can you quickly just recap how the project is being funded?
The product is funded through a combination of an MTA grant, somewhere in the neighborhood of 410,000, as well as city contribution. And the city contribution is both in staff time, which is called in-kind contribution, as well as cash. The city is obligated to contribute $50,000 to the cost of the specific plan. And those are the only funding sources for this document.
Yep, and just say that money goes to pay not just, Anton and me, but there's a large team consisting of transportation engineers, environmental planners and engineers, economists, civil engineers, et cetera, that are all part of this project, so that we are able to look at all the different aspects and make sure that it's correct. Perhaps the question, I don't know, but perhaps the question is about how the things that are recommended actually get built and funded. And that is, because that's a very important question as well. And that's part of the strategy that we're developing right now. As we said at the beginning, I mean, it's not going to be funded through new taxes on residents, but there are a variety of other kind of funding sources that might be explored. Definitely state grants, for example. We might be able to get state grants that would pay for the redesign of Compton Boulevard to make it more pedestrian and bike friendly. That's something that the state is looking to help communities with all up and down California. There's also a possibility to have the property owners of the commercial properties in this area pay something towards having, for example, unarmed security guards that walk around, or guides, maintenance people, people that power wash the sidewalks, all that kind of stuff. That's another funding opportunity that we're looking at, and we'll continue to look at more before we finish the plan.
What is the estimated cost for the project?
Right now, the total cost, the contract with Arroyo is, I believe, for about 410,000.
But is that just for the planning portion of this?
Yes.
Not the development, obviously, right?
This is to produce a specific plan document, a 8.5 by 11 by maybe half-inch thick, hopefully less, document that you can hand to someone that will answer theoretically every question they have in terms of how can I develop, what do I need to develop, what type of application is it, what's the review process. This will be a standalone document that we can hand out to anyone who has questions on the specific plan. But the whole goal is to produce a planning document to aid the development community, whether that's commercial or housing, to produce a project proposal.
One other thing I didn't mention is, of course, the development that would occur on private land. Now thinking not about the planning, but the construction, right? So construction of projects on private land should be privately funded. So it shouldn't touch the city's finances at all.
Okay, I'm going through, there's a lot of little notes coming in. Would it be possible to require community engagement and workshops from each developer project much earlier than the EIR process, so the community can have a say in the individual private projects?
Well, certainly, when we get projects implemented through the specific plan, and the one right now, KBK that I mentioned earlier, will have a community outreach event very shortly. But for subsequent projects in a specific plan, we will require that the developers have a community outreach meeting, at least one, preferably two, one in the beginning and one towards the more public hearing end of the process, so that the community can have an opportunity to make comments early on, and then view how their comments were factored into the ultimate project on the back end, as well as have an opportunity to comment during the CEQA process. One thing to note, in the specific plan, there's going to be two levels of review. We're looking at this project as a program EIR in terms of CEQA. And what that means is we're looking at a comprehensive project that factors in all the development intensities, that allows subsequent projects that fall within the scope of this EIR, that fall under it, that propose development less intense than the development scenario envisioned by the EIR, do not need to do another EIR. They would either be categorically exempt or do a mitigated negative declaration, which is sort of like a mini EIR, which also has a 30-day public review period for the public to comment on as well. But throughout the whole development project, especially after the first community outreach meeting, the community will be aware of the project, and at any opportunity, and this goes for any project now, any project in the city that's not in the TOD, any community group, any citizen has an opportunity and is welcome to comment on any proposed project that the city is currently reviewing. But right now, this community has an opportunity to comment on this project, and when the EIR is opened up for its 45-day review process, they'll have an opportunity to review both the specific plan and the EIR. But as I said, right now, the community is welcome to contact me, and all the documents we have are public information documents. So they're more than welcome to look at anything I have in the file and comment it if they wish.
Candace, sorry, you're on.
I can't hear Candace.
Sorry, I'm talking to myself. My someone in my house is watching the debate and is laughing really loud, so I have to keep putting the mic on mute.
Oh, who's winning?
I have no idea, but judging by the laughs, it's really entertaining.
Oh, I want to see that 2-minute silence mic bit where they can't talk. That's the best part.
You're gonna see a lot of, anyways, let's see. What percentage will be new construction versus modernization?
I don't know. That depends on the developer. If they can salvage an existing building and it's cheaper to do so, I imagine they will. I think, though, that given the age of the buildings, their size, that they're all on small lots as well, that most of the buildings would be demolished. A developer would have to assemble probably at least 6 lots on the block to combine them, so they can have a big enough property to make a meaningful development. So I doubt anything that you see now would be preserved. When development comes on Compton Boulevard, it's probably all going to be brand new.
Yeah, I mean, well, and that's talking about, you know, again, what is right in this key focus area in downtown. We should note that anything that is an actual historic resource, that's a qualified historic building, could not be demolished. And then as we look at the rest of this specific plan area, So outside of, what's highlighted here, the changes that are envisioned for those areas are much smaller, much more incremental. And in the residential neighborhoods, basically no changes.
Yes, I want to make that clear. Thank you, Phil. We're not replanning any of the single-family residential areas. So anyone who lives there doesn't have to worry about potentially moving out or some huge development occurring next to them. Our development is mainly focused on Compton Boulevard, Alameda, Willowbrook area, and the Rosecrans Alameda area up there, but not wholesale redevelopment like you see in the red and the green areas on your screen. That's not going to happen to the white squares you see, which are the single family areas. They're being left alone.
Okay. And I have to add that a lot of the a big majority of the, I won't say complaints, but concerns do revolve around downtown. And I was born and raised here. I saw what happened during the riots, and we lost some buildings, and things just have never really kind of come back. So a lot of people will say that they do want a really beautiful, rich downtown like it used to be back in the day. And if you look at old pictures of old Compton, it was this beautiful downtown. They had stores. My mom talks about, I guess they had a circus ice cream shop that you can go into, and a place that you could take your kids to drive their remote control cars, and there were banks. And so a lot of feedback, like this gives me a lot of hope, because I know that there are a lot of people who want to see that downtown come back. So I'm really excited, and I've been really excited to be a part of the stakeholder meetings. I feel like I understand the concerns about gentrification and people, you hear a lot about that, and it does sound scary when you hear a lot of it in the news, but we do have to be open to improvement and revitalizing our city, because if we keep doing what we've been doing and we don't try new things because we're afraid, then we're going to just have what we've had all of this time. We're going to keep going in this circle. And so I love that they have been taking community input. I would encourage everyone to visit their website at nextstopcompton.org, to follow them on Instagram, to ask them questions. They're very responsive. Before I got to know them, I know I sent them messages on Instagram, and they've responded fairly quickly. So ask questions so that you're aware, give your input. I mean, it's kind of an open forum right now. They're in the process of planning. So get involved and let them know what you're thinking or feeling, or what your questions or concerns are, so that you can feel better about this plan. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything else.
I just want to second what you said, Candace. My goal is to revitalize downtown Compton Boulevard. It doesn't take a whole lot to just know and look at Compton Boulevard and some of our other streets, that about 60% of those businesses are closed. Some haven't been occupied for maybe a decade or longer. These buildings are obsolete. They're 1930s vintage. So we desperately need redevelopment on Compton Boulevard to make it a place where you want to go and visit. You want to see some shops, entertainment centers, or just to walk, and have a nice area to walk that's got a wide sidewalk, tree-lined streets, and nice areas, trash cans everywhere, some benches, some outdoor seating. That is really the goal of this plan, to provide affordable housing, more housing for people to move up into, to provide more retail opportunities, and to provide a destination. If we can get those three objectives, we would consider this specific plan a success.
Thank you. If anyone has any other questions, you can type them in the chat box. If not, feel free.
Just really
Oh,
quickly.
there we go.
Wanted to
That's
bring
what
up
my
this
mom talks
picture
about.
here. Yeah. Yeah, you can see here the street signs, Compton and Willowbrook. This is from the 50s.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was amazing.
goodness.
I mean, and I mean, and one thing to notice about this though is that, you know, and you see this in a lot of, you know, older pictures of downtown where it's like, you know, this huge hodgepodge of different signs, which on one hand is really great, but you know, when people talk about like sort of modern downtowns, there's a little bit more of a consistent aesthetic to it. So I mean, so it's taking sort of the best of what you see here, but also making it modern as well.
Well, speaking as a planner, all those signs are, well, they could be improved. Well, that's speaking as a planner.
That was really, when I look at these pictures though, I think it really brings back really warm memories of just my mother's memories and what she talks to us about, and how it really was family oriented. So her parents would take their 5 kids here and they would do stuff in downtown Compton. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know why anyone would not want to see
Yeah,
that.
we would, my goal is to get that back. I mean, look at the people on the street. When's the last time you saw that many people on Compton just walking and shopping?
Mhm.
And a theater. Look at, there's a theater there, and there's, you know, places to eat. And I mean, where some of the feedback we've gotten from other people in the community is that they were frustrated that they had to leave Compton to go and just have a nice night out, you know. And the idea is to take the essence of what you see here and revitalize that for Compton.
Yes, Bill, you still there?
Yep, I'm here.
Look at the photo. Notice the light standard. Maybe that's something we can try to emulate or copy, is old pedestal style pedestrian level street lights instead of those 40-foot high Cobra light heads, but get something that has globes and lamps that maybe some of the older residents in Compton would be reminded of old Compton when they see a modern version of that. Maybe
Yeah.
that's something we can put in the plan.
Well, I think we'll definitely want to have pedestrian scale lighting, you know, and everything, making a much more pedestrian friendly environment.
Yes, and I would think low level lighting versus those street, you know, highway Cobra headlights, you know, that are 40 feet in the air. This would be much friendlier, warmer to the people.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Okay. Is
Well,
there anything else?
it doesn't look like any more. What firm are they using for the plans?
That would be the Arroyo Group.
Okay. They're out of Pasadena.
Yes.
They were, yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. I hope that this has reached more of our residents. I know that over the past few months, I've talked to different people and they weren't aware of Next Stop Compton, but I hope that this will bring them in and they can start to be active members of this process. Once again, I encourage you to follow Next Stop Compton online and go to their website, nextstopcompton.org. I think you can sign up for updates
Yes, you
there
can.
too. I think I saw that.
Yeah.
And
Also,
follow them on social media as well. Go ahead.
yes, on Instagram. And we will, when we have other community events, Zoom meetings, or if this virus ever ends and we can go back to traditional, notices will be posted on the project webpage and on the city project webpage as well. So the community can always go to those resources and find out if there's an upcoming stakeholder or general community meeting.
Yes. Yeah, stay involved. I mean, getting involved and staying involved. That is the only way that you'll get your questions answered, really. So I encourage everyone to take an active role in the city that we live in, and you know, ask questions. If you have questions, just ask, and then you're not guessing. You're not, you know, thinking it's something worse than it is, but just get involved. And that's why we have these meetings. And I'm really appreciative that the team was able to be here and present, you know, today. And we will continue to do this as needed to, keep people engaged. But thank you again, gentlemen, for joining us. Thank
You're
you
welcome.
to everyone who dialed in. We did live today, so I think there's people. What was that?
You're
You
welcome.
kind of.
Yeah, thank you for having us. I mean, and for those of you who are out there in Facebook Live land, do follow us on Instagram. We take portions of our presentation and we put it out there for comments, and we read the comments. Even though we read the comments, we do read the comments, and we take we take it all into consideration and pull that all in. We want all of it. So please be nice, but definitely give us your feedback.
Thank you so much. All right, everyone, go. I'm going to go watch this debate and get my entertainment on for tonight. So everyone have a great evening. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.